There's no audio.
He can see you. He can see you. We can't hear you.
Oh, okay. Let me. I know.
He's messing with you. I think he's just moving his lips.
Can somebody say what he's saying?
Hello?
Hello? Hello? Hello?
I can turn you down a wee bit because it's really loud.
Can you mute him?
Awesome.
You're like a booming voice of God from the from the projector.
Cool.
Alright, cool. There's also, by the way, there's like a rave going on next door right now. So it's like, yeah, pumping music in the background. Oh,
Cool.
oh, you're still there. Cool. Alright.
Yep.
Sweet.
Oh, no, he's dead.
You can see me.
Yeah.
Okay,
And I
cool.
can see like the top corner of my head.
Okay.
Oh wait.
There's
Can't see it
Robbie.
anymore.
And there's a bunch of. Oh, wait, you didn't see that.
Hello? Hello? Hi.
Oh, yeah,
Hi.
there he is.
There's people. Hey, what's happening?
And then some people.
You're really
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Dr. Nick.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try and interview you for like 20 minutes, then we'll open it to the floor for questions.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. I'm gonna sit down.
Good.
Where's that? By the way, anyone coming in, please use the side door because it's really distracting with the.
So proud.
Okay. Do you want to introduce yourself, John?
Yeah, sure. I'm Jonathan Brodsky. I'm 1/3 of Lucky Frame. I make games. Do you need more of an introduction?
Yeah, go for it. How did you get started in Scotland and Lucky Frame and stuff?
Sure, yeah. So me and Yen, who's the founder of Lucky Frame, have been working together for about 10 or 11 years now. We met in university and started playing music together in bands. I'll just keep introducing myself, like making short stories long. So we started a band called ODI where we built synthesizers and sequencers and stuff, and that was about 11 years ago. And we've been doing pretty much the same thing nonstop.
What was the first, I guess, Lucky Frame project that you were involved in?
I think it was actually, I think the first Lucky Frame project that I was involved with was the second Lucky Frame project, which was the Wii Loop machine, version 2. So the first Lucky Frame project, the reason that Yen started the company was the Wii Loop machine, which was a sequencer, synthesizer, sampler that used the Nintendo Wiimote as an interface. And Yen brought me on to help do the interface design and concepts and programming and stuff for the second Wii Loop machine. So that was 5 years ago now, maybe.
What about, we should probably have a quick introduction of who Lucky Frame are and what kind of stuff you do.
Yeah, sure. So Lucky Frame is myself, Yen Susnek, and Sean McElroy. I'm primarily a developer, although I do game design as well. Yen is the founder and does sound design, programming, business stuff, and Sean is primarily an artist, although he also does game design. Lucky Frame does a lot of stuff. So we did a series of music games for iOS, and that was probably the biggest thing that game people would know us for. But we also do all sorts of things. So we've been recently building lots of physical game interfaces. We've been putting on events in Scotland. Yen tours with Matthew Herbert and builds custom instruments for that live stage show. We do contract work, etc., etc. We're kind of all over the map.
Cool. So I mean, we had a discussion about GDC earlier, and we were asking like what people's like favorite things that they saw were. And Brian Duggan, who's a lecturer at DIT, I don't know if he's still in the room. He actually mentioned Raffle Pillar.
Cool.
So give people like a quick introduction of what Raffle Pillar is.
Yeah, sure. Raffle Pillar is a game that we made just this past October. I was inspired by Oculus Rift, kind of inspired by, I suppose. Like I was a little bit disappointed by how little your body mattered for VR experiences, and I wanted to make a VR game where the interaction was just rolling around on the floor. I didn't have a VR headset, so I just put a TV on some chairs and started rolling around on the floor underneath it, and that's kind of the genesis of Rafflepiller. I explained the idea to Ricky Haggett from Honey Slug, and he suggested that I make a Caterpillar game. So I made a 2-player Caterpillar game that you control by rolling around on the floor. I wish I had a picture of it or something, because it's way easier to explain.
I can bring a picture of it.
Visually. Yeah, you should if you can. I actually showed this picture to some, if it's, whatever, they all look the same. I showed the picture to someone and they didn't realize that there was a TV in the box that your head's inside of. They thought you just imagined the entire game, which I think would be pretty good. Did you find a picture of it?
Yeah, I'm loading up your website, but it's kind of frozen. Oh no, the internet's gonna go down.
Oh no, I'm still here.
Alright, cool. Yeah, okay, this is like one of the original, this is the original prototype. Oh, well, it's the second version, I think, from Edinburgh.
Yeah, so it's been through like 4 revisions. The software I just made in like 1 or 2 days, and then the hardware bit has been revised. So it was originally just like a terrible frame made out of 2x4s covered with a sheet. It was just kind of this nightmare that you put your head inside of, and then we made like a better cardboard exterior, and now it has like a fabric tent around it, so it looks nicer and nicer. Yeah, so what's that?
I was saying everyone's laughing. They can see like the Game City version with just like the piece of like cloth over some people's heads.
Yeah, that was the worst version of it by far, but it totally worked. People loved it. I think a few people said it was their game of the show for Game City, so even though it was, that was the first time that we showed it anywhere. I think we made it specifically to take down to Game City.
So what's the draw to like physical controllers and stuff then? Because I saw you're working on a fire controller or something this weekend.
Yeah, we're showing a thing at Maker Faire. So what's the thing with physical controllers? I don't know. They're just kind of fun. It's funny because initially when me and Jan started talking about like the project that brought me over here, what I was interested in was using existing just like D-pad AD like NES controllers for music. And my thesis was kind of like, we've grown up on these controllers who are super fluid and able to communicate with them really well, so we should make instruments that use those as the core. And then recently we've been just building like absurd stuff. We had the game tracks lying around, so they were from another project. Yen built an instrument with game tracks, so I just repurposed them for the Rafflepiller. The game with the fire that we're building, I don't know why we thought it would be funny to just build like, Guerrillas Got Fast, like that artillery game.
Okay.
Except like to learn something that you had to use a match to shoot the gun, because that would be way more fun. So we did that. I don't know. It's like
you guys do these. So you work in the larger projects. I guess there's been largely iOS stuff. We like talk about it a wee bit, maybe like Pugs Love Beats, then Wave Trip, Bad Hotel, which got on Steam and stuff as well. But around that, you make these small experiments, and that seems like really core to like who you are as a studio and what you do. I mean, do you find like do the larger things come from the small experiments, or are they just really nice to take a break and do something weird and strange for a bit?
Yeah. So I think like all of our games are based on weekend prototypes. Like with the exception of Pugs Love Beats, everything's been a jam game that we've just blown out into a 3 to 6 month long project. I'm working on a project that's been going for a month now that started as a puzzle script that I made in 1 day, and then I made a 7-day roguelike out of that 1-day puzzle script, and then it's been like a month now, and probably another month or so to finish that. But this small like weirder experiments are, I don't know, just to keep ourselves happy, I suppose. Like part of the other thing is that we're interested in doing kind of event games and games that you can't just download off of Steam. That's interesting to us. And we also like building things that you can play with your hands and like that's sort of an unexpected interface and UI to play with.
So I mean, you organized actually, and I'm going to come back to I guess the Nightmare Cooperative in a wee bit because we should totally talk about that. But
sure.
You organized in January in Edinburgh a kind of festival, and before that you made unique controllers. Do you want to talk about that a wee bit?
Yeah, sure. So, like everybody else, we were totally into baby castles. None of us have ever been to actual baby castles, but from the photographs and the descriptions of it, we're like, okay, we want one of those. And I think, like Wild Rumpus as well is inspired by that. So, obviously, we're different people, so what we wanted was tacos. I said, like, we can't, like, the cornerstone of an event is the fact that you can eat tacos at it. So I said we have to have tacos at the event. And Yen said, no chiptune. So we'll have bluegrass at it. No chiptune or techno, I think were the two bands on the road
right now.
What's that?
We got plenty of techno in the background.
Yeah, if only there was bluegrass, you'd be totally
That'd be
so yeah. So it was like, I don't want to slag off techno or whatever, because I make techno, but like...
Well, I think it is, like, with, like, games events, they feel like, you know, whether it's Wild Rumpus, like, there's a very specific kind of music it always is, and you guys kind of just threw that, like, completely away, I think.
Yeah, well, we're totally into bluegrass. I think we've been talking about what the next potential music genre is. If we knew enough hip-hop heads, we'd probably have hip-hop, but maybe we'll just do like 70s analog synthesizers, where it's just like big modular people and people just making like soundscapes. I don't know, we'll figure out something weird for the next one.
Well, it feels like that like almost fits with some people's games, like Neil Moody's and stuff as well.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, you go on, sorry?
Yeah, so those were the two things that weren't the video games, and then we were like, okay, we'll have a bunch of games. So we then also build custom stuff for each of them. So we built a custom table for Smessport by Smestorp. That one wasn't super complicated. It was just like we built some like physical special effects. There was like fans with fans. It's hard to describe. There's like a stadium on the side.
I'm literally trying to like Google get the vine of it now.
The vine? Yeah, it might be hard to find, but.
So like, why did you make like custom controllers for all the different games then that you showed off?
Just to make the whole thing more fun, so you're not just standing in front of a laptop. Like to make it feel more like an event, to make it feel more approachable to people that maybe aren't as into video games. Like I think our mission was, so our mission is to show that games can be made for other purposes than commercial purposes. So a lot of the Scottish industry and stuff that we see around is people making money off of games. Like we're all in the shadow of Rockstar. Rockstar North is just up the road from our studio, and I think a lot of both the university system and the way that people think about games in this country is for commercial stuff, and that's like we haven't. I don't know. We haven't really been making commercial games, or that's not our impetus to be making games. So we wanted to show that there's these other kind of creative ways that it can be created.
We have a vine now, the little guy's cheering. It's awesome.
Yeah, I was really proud of that. We were in like that period of our studio a month or 2 months ago, whatever. I was like, we're gonna make everything out of cardboard. If you're ever at a loss for what material to use cardboard. So there was a lot of cardboard in that thing. I think we've moved on to like fabric is the new cardboard. Yeah, I want to work up towards just like steel, welded steel. Yeah.
What do you think makes a good event then? Like, why was it that was like just a strange mix of stuff? You think that was that made it interesting, or?
I mean, what did it for us was that people showed up. Like we sold out, which was awesome, and we totally didn't expect it. But I think the event was just enjoyable because it had food and music that wasn't too loud, and like a few video games to play if you got bored of talking to people. Like I don't think it's actually that hard to run an event, which is super nice. I don't know, how's your event going? Is it like, it's okay?
Yeah, it's pretty good, yeah.
You probably have tacos at it though.
We're looking at a picture of Punch the Cluster right now, that'd be pretty great.
Oh yeah, cool.
Cool.
Yeah, that's the game by George V21, at V21 on Twitter, that's like never fails to amuse. Even if you describe it to someone, like, they're like, what are you talking about?
So basically, yeah, whoever punches the cluster the fastest wins, but it's hooked up with Mickey to like a screen and everything. And the punch cluster is weird because when you punch it, it becomes all like hard and like physical. But okay. So let's go back to some games and stuff then. What about this? Actually, before we get on to Nightmare, we should probably talk about some stuff he's worked on before that.
Yep.
I feel like
What's happening?
Someone's phone keeps going off, but it's okay.
Yeah.
So he's mortified right now. It's all right.
Okay, good. Just as long as they're embarrassed.
No embarrassment. No, she's totally cool with it. Actually, it's all right.
Okay.
Well, what's cool about Lucky Frame? You guys do a lot of stuff. This is probably what you're known for best. Is like the interactive audio and music kind of side of things. And that I guess that to you has always been a really natural fit. But do you want to talk about it? I mean, I started with Pugs Love Beat. Well, I guess you made Jan made like music apps and stuff before that. Yeah, just to talk about like the relationship with music there then.
Yeah, so that's the entire reason that we started making games. Like, I would have been happy just to make musical instruments, and that's what. So the Wii Loop Machine, the first thing that I worked on with Yen was a music thing that just happened to use a video game controller. Then the first project that I did programming on was an iOS app called Mujik, M-U-J-I-K, which was like a weird drum machine kind of, or like sample chopper sort of. And then the game thing was like, so the thesis was, can we make games in which the process of play is also the process of composing music? We tried to do that with Pugs Love Beats and Bad Hotel and Wave Trip, and they're all very much experiments in trying to figure out, is that concept possible? And we did that for two years.
Go ahead.
No,
go on. You continue.
Yeah. So those were three projects that we did for 2 years, and we were all very much in the process of figuring out like what is a game, like how does a game work? Because I think that Pugs Love Beats was the first game that I ever sold, and maybe like the fourth or fifth game that I made. Like I made a bunch of glorious train wrecks before that, and like 2 Love and Dare games. And then launched into like a 9-month-long project that was like, it was like my entire life was dependent on the success of this project, and it was an interesting experiment. I want to go back to it now that I've been making games for another 2 or 3 years since then.
I mean, how did you find then was it a natural process? I guess Pugs Love Beats maybe came from like creating you tell me, like a tracker in a sense, or like a drum machine essentially, or how did you find the process of like, was it like, how did it evolve essentially is what I'm trying to get at?
Yeah, so we just started prototyping, I guess, and I was playing around with fixed puzzles that had like a bunch of different elements, and you needed to hook them up in the correct order, and there was like 5 or 6 different 5 or 6 different potential ways that you could hook them up, and the view was to make this like into a whole compositional interface that happened to have a puzzle game sitting underneath it, and that didn't work. It was just like super weird. And then I made another prototype which was like Pac-Man, except you controlled the ghosts, and it had like and by manipulating the position of the Pac-Man character, that would change the music, so it was a kind of this live performance thing. And then, so I just was making a series of prototypes, and the prototype that became Pugs Love Beats was a simple thing where you could put 3 positions on a map, or 4 or 5 or however many, and you'd have this thing run around to the different positions, and every time it stepped on a piece of the map, it would make a different sound. And it was just like this interesting, I guess you'd call it a drum machine, but just a different way to conceptualize drum machines. It was about the rhythms were created by how far apart the nodes were placed on a map, which is kind of a non-standard way of doing it. And then we built this whole weird, like, free-to-play game around it.
It's interesting. I guess like Postal Beats feels like it's the most. You got progressively more gamey in a sense, like after that, or like.
Yeah, so that one, like the game is just shoehorned into it. It's not very well thought out. And Bad Hotel. So after Postal Beats, we were like, okay, let's do this again, because we were contracted. We had funding to make 4 games, and so we were like, okay, let's figure out the next one. I had made Bad Hotel for a Love and Dare competition, and I was messing around with some other prototypes, and that were music sequencers, essentially. They were like these tree-based music sequencers where you built trees and that created the sounds. And I realized that they were the same as Bad Hotel. They were about music, and Bad Hotel was this weird tower defense thing. So I just crammed the 2 of them together. So even though that was gamey, it did have like this music thing. And then Wave Trip, I think I kind of just gave up on my core thesis at that point. But just because it's split into 2 components. There's the creation component where you can build these levels. So it's essentially it's the same thing as Sound Self, which I don't think is a failure. It's just like I wanted to try this, see if this other thing would be interesting.
So I mean, do you feel like there's a strong overlap there and there between like playing music or creating music and playing a game in a sense?
Yeah, maybe. I need to get back to it.
Okay.
I've taken like a year and a half off from making music games. We made Gentleman, and we've done like some puzzle games, and we've just been making prototypes for the past year. And I think I'd like to get back to it. There totally is an overlap, but it's a strange space to explore.
So did you feel like you needed to take a break from music kind of games then for a bit? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it was funny because like when I started making games, started making games full time, I essentially stopped making music, and I've been like performing and playing and composing for years before it, and then the game stuff became so all-consuming, and I was doing jams nearly every weekend for a while, or at least hammering out a prototype. And I think I kind of lost track of what's music. I don't know. But now I'm starting to get back into it, and I have I'm pretty excited to make some music games again, or explore that original concept again.
So let's kind of like probably the last thing, and we'll open it up for questions. Talk about working on a roguelike game.
Yeah, sort of.
So I guess there's not going to be any interactive music in that. It's just the next thing after this. But like, talk about Nightmare Cooperative then, or less.
Yeah, sure. I don't know. I really actually. So one of the games that was the inspiration for it, Saga 33, has like this amazing dynamic soundtrack, which is super simple. But it's just has excuse me, a really, really long delay line on it, and makes everything just like boom, 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 which is really an amazing musical experience. So yeah, anyways, I'm making a roguelike, mostly inspired by Michael Bros. Or Smethorp's roguelikes, 868 Hack and Saga 33. And there's actually a bunch of other roguelikes that kind of fit into this realm now, like Power Grounds and Amber Halls and Hoplite, which are just super small levels, no exploration, try to get right to the meat of it and kick people out quickly. So yeah, I'm making one of those. Mine is different in that you don't have an inventory, but you control multiple characters at once, and they each have different abilities and powers, and that's essentially your inventory. So you need to keep your wizard alive so that you can attack on diagonals, and you need to keep your priest alive so that you can heal the other characters and this kind of thing. So, yeah.
So what's the challenge then in, I guess it's the first roguelike you've made?
Yeah.
And what's the challenge in creating a roguelike? And then what's the appeal, I guess?
God, there's so many challenges. I'm a little bit concerned about this game, but yeah, the appeal.
But is there like, because I'm looking at the indie games one now, is there like a latest build anywhere I can find, like load it up?
You can find it on jonbro.itch.io, but that build is pretty out of date. Yeah, load it up. It's totally playable and enjoyable. I think it's been 2 or 3 weeks since that, and I've added so much stuff. We've overhauled all the art and everything.
Oh yeah, because it's the old art. Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, the appeal of roguelikes, I don't know, if you haven't played them, it's like sort of hard to describe, but what I like about this like crop of like small board focused roguelikes is that they're just really tight puzzle games. Basically, they're puzzle games that don't have a specific solution, which I really like. I like puzzle games where there's multiple paths to the end.
So, so what have you learned then from developing this over the last, what are the challenges you've solved in a sense?
Oh gosh, I don't know. The code for this game is terrible. Like, if anything, my growth on this game has just been like a kind of anything goes approach. So every time I have an idea for an enemy, because it's a roguelike, I can essentially add new characters to it in like 5 or 10 minutes. So I think there's like 50 unique characters, enemies, and floor things now. So it's a pretty expansive game, which is enjoyable. The code for it is tremendously bad. It's essentially just in 2 files. But actually, most of the learning experience came from playing around with puzzle script. Like, I tried to make roguelike before this one, and then earlier this year I made 2 puzzle script games, like one on Monday and then one on Tuesday, somewhere early in January, and it kind of like exploded in my mind, and I was like, oh, okay, this is how you make roguelikes. I get it now. It all makes sense.
Do you want to explain puzzle script for people?
Sure, yeah. Puzzle script is this really cool, focused puzzle game language. Puzzlescript.net, I believe. Yeah, it's...
Okay, can you hear Jan's music in the background?
Yeah.
It's really creepy. I'll play it and then I'll die really quickly.
Okay, go ahead.
This
Try.
It's like this original version, I guess, it's like puzzle script, it's like grid-based and stuff.
Yeah, so it was actually like the puzzle script game that I made just had like 4 hearts that each had 2 HP each, and you needed to navigate through the levels so that you could absorb attacks on one heart and then kind of machine your way around to absorb the attack on the next heart.
Okay, so one last question, I guess. I was gonna die now.
Yeah, go for it. That version's actually too easy, so it might take you a while. Sorry.
I just X'd it. Yeah, so puzzle script make like really simple puzzle games and stuff, so people should really check it out. It's really cool.
It's amazing. Even if you don't I didn't actually think I liked puzzle games, and then I started making games in puzzle script, and I was like, wait a second, this is amazing. They're really there's a lot of game design that I was missing out on by ignoring puzzle games. And if anything, it's just like the simplicity of the language that allows you to just add new ideas super fast. So I was making, for my Candy Jam game, I made 15 levels in a day and released the game the next day. So it was just a really enjoyable experience to use it.
Cool, okay, so I'm going to open up to everyone here in a second, but to bring it back to sound and music, what were some of the what have you learned while you were doing that? I guess for a year and a half, and then kind of what did you learn taking a break from it? Well, like what were the challenges and stuff in creating interactive audio for games? I guess.
So there's not much of a challenge to make interactive audio for games. Like that's like super enjoyable. The challenge comes from like making things that are games, which I'm not sure if that's the right thing. So like Proteus totally blew my mind. That was one of the things that I came to kind of towards the end of the process. But the challenge is making things that are games, but also intentionally spaces for playing music and having those two, having the looseness of being able to play music, but also the tightness of all these rules and stuff, which I find really interesting. Yeah, which is just like actually a kind of general game design problem. Like, how do you have these structures, but also allow players to express themselves within them?
Well, it's interesting that you have gone more and more into the rule base, and now you're literally making like a Michael Bro like roguelike, which is super rule based.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, yeah. So like, I guess like the interesting space there maybe is stuff like Unverse, where it is just like kind of, you know, instead of getting, I guess, hung up on the word game, it's just this is an interactive app in a sense.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, like a lot. Like another one is like the guy you mentioned, Neil Moody. His Hummingbird game is super rule-based, but then also you can't die and you just kind of float around and mess around with the objects in the world and they make sound. And that's a really enjoyable experience. So those sorts of things, like why is there death in games? I mean, they're incredible play spaces where you don't have any threat to you, and that opens you up to play more. And I think that like the experience of making the games, like taking out death was a huge change that we made. So you can't die in Wave Trip, and you can't die in Bugs Love Beats, and that made the games easier to play music with. So yeah.
Cool. Do you feel like there's like a contrast or competition between making it a game and making it something to be played?
I don't know. I think that's just like a societal, cultural thing. Yeah, it's a cultural thing. That's what it is.
Okay, it's always good to blame culture. It's always an easy.
Yeah.
Like even I'm just looking at some of the stuff here, like White Mask Experiment. Was that like Sean something that he developed or?
Yeah, Sean was just screwing around in Unity and made this cool game. In fact, he did all the audio for it just by pulling samples off the web, and it's kind of funny how great the soundscape you can make if you just like you don't have any preconceived notions about how music should work. So if you just kind of stuck in audio where you thought it would sound good, and the intent behind that game was just to make these really sparse visuals that kind of mask each other off.
True. And do you feel like, is there any like what games or maybe even creators are you looking to at the moment that are creating either interesting stuff in a game space or interesting stuff in a music-y kind of game space? Do you think?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I play all kinds of games, but like
well,
none of them.
Where do you pull inspiration from then? Like, do you look outside of games to take stuff from, or?
I think like the thing that I'm inspired, like there's a book called Infinite Music that had a thing talking about how the future of music will require new ways of creating music and new ways of consuming music. So that's super inspirational to me. Like we have these structures that are built either around like going out to performances or listening to music as a like on MP3s or CD players or whatever, and like creating new ways of consuming music or creating new ways of experiencing music is super inspirational. I kind of, yeah, that's what I want to explore.
Cool. Okay, one last chance to get a question from the audience.
Yeah, but you don't have one.
We got one, sweet.
Oh my god.
I'm sorry. And I'm just wondering, as far as...
Can you hear him, by the way?
No, you're gonna have to repeat it.
I was just wondering, like, your games are kind of, well, a little crazy. And I was just wondering, like, how do you know when to stop or pull back, or do you just say everything goes?
Will I repeat that?
Yeah, no, except which one looks crazy? All of them. Okay, cool.
In a good way. In a good way. Right.
Yeah, so Wave Trip, Bad Hotel, and Hugs Love Beats were all kind of actually really conservative in their design. So we figured out the design early on, and we were like, okay, stick to this. Don't add anything else, and just like cut it. And the part of that was we just didn't know how to really make games. So when we landed on something that worked, we were like, okay, yeah, don't touch it. It's perfect. Like keep it in this state. I think that we kind of oscillate. You just oscillate between those two states of adding things and removing things. So on Nightmare Cooperative, I remove nearly as much as I add. I mean, there's just like there's tons of bad ideas in there. I just take them out as they're boring or don't function, or but it's an enjoyable process to add things, and it's also like it's just two parts of the same mind. So one day I'll add things, and the next day I'll take them out.
Cool. Okay.
That's basically it.
I guess then, like, you guys have once you have something really solid, like what you do with Nightmare Cooperative now, you get the kind of art pass on it, where like where Sean will come in and like create 100 different assets of the same thing. So like,
yeah.
is that always you know? Do you like create the game first and then find the aesthetic, or like how does that work together?
No, they kind of happen hand in hand generally. So like there's always a terrible prototype that has nice scribble on it, or is made out of like paper or just pixel art or whatever, and then I try to get Sean in early. So maybe about half the stuff that's in Nightmare Cooperative has gone in since he started working on it. So yeah, we try to build this stuff hand in hand, because obviously the visual aesthetic is huge. As much as I want games just to be like weird colored shapes and abstract audio, like everybody loves screenshots. So you kind of yeah, it's just because we're visual people. So it's important to have that visual communication be like integral to the way the game plays.
Cool. Okay, we'll have one last question then.
Oh my god, I feel like I'm really know what it's like there.
I was just going to say, what games he drew inspiration from? What his main inspiration?
Do you hear that? I'll repeat it. So he's just asking what games, I guess, have been your main inspiration and like throughout the work you've done.
So the stuff that was the inspiration for the first set, like Tenarion, or the first set of games like That Hotel, that stuff were things like Tenarion, or Monome software, which is like a weird open source musical instrument, or what else, like Electroplankton obviously is a huge influence. Yeah, we were mostly actually looking at experimental musical interfaces when we started the first set of games. Since then, just, I don't know, I played tons of games. Like last weekend was Metro 2033, I played a ton of that, and I also played Shelter. I don't know, I just play everything. Obviously Michael Burrow's games are hugely inspirational to the Nightmare Cooperative, and I hope I'm not failing his stuff with mine. But yeah, I don't think any of us really limit ourselves. We just did playing Dark Souls 2 at work, so maybe we'll make a Dark Souls 2 music game next.
Okay, so do you think that whole, I guess, that prototyping like way you created, that results in more interesting games and more like crazier, like more interesting stuff? Like creating these prototypes and creating, I guess, a house for people put their heads in and pretend they're a caterpillar. Do you think that like in all leads to like more creative, I guess, approach to work?
Yeah, maybe. So yeah, the prototyping is interesting, but I think that we kind of needed the grand mission statement too, to focus those prototypes. like I find it really hard to follow themes and jams to the point. Like I'll just make the games that I want to make because they're all leading towards something bigger. Yeah, so unless the theme is really good, but yeah, the prototyping is totally critical. I don't know why anybody would do prototyping. It's just part of like, it's like sketching. You kind of need it.
Okay, cool. Okay, so we're gonna wrap up then. Do you wanna tease anything that's gonna? I don't know what you're gonna tease, but do you wanna tease anything before we like say goodbye, Jon?
I mean, I'd love. I think we've teased everything that we could. Play Nightmare Cooperative if you want. It's too easy, but pop up on that website. Make a puzzle script game.
So when are you guys gonna release that? Like, because you're working on a more polished version at the moment.
That's the worst question. Before we run out of money, we'll release it.
Okay, sweet. That's good plan.
Yeah.
Alright. Well, thanks. I mean, thanks for talking to us, Jon. It was a kind of a
thanks for having me.
It was a weird interview, and like I guess I've been kind of staring into the corner of the screen the entire time, so you're not even looking at a face. But yeah, cheers for doing it. And
yeah, thanks for having you guys.
Alright, can I get a cheer then?